everyone. It's your boy, Joaquin the Science Queen, back at it again with another nervous system video. So today we're gonna be focusing on, like I said, the nervous system. So everyone better be ready to learn.
Nervous tissue is a major part of the nervous system. It forms the body's main communication network by conducting electrical signals across tissue. There are two main types of nervous tissue. Gray matter uses synapses, which allow for neurons to pass chemical and electrical signals to each other. It is critical for information processing. White matter has myelinated axons, which allow for electrical currents containing messages to move through the brain. The brain is perhaps the most important organ in our bodies. It controls processing, memory, and organizes the information it receives from the sense organs. There are three main parts within the brain. The cerebrum is located in the uppermost region of the central nervous system. It contains the cerebral cortex and the hippocampus. The hippocampus controls long-term and short-term memory. Within that lies the cerebral cortex, which is in charge of memory, attention, perception, awareness, thought, language and consciousness. Then there are the four main parts of the cerebral cortex. The frontal cortex is in charge of executive functions like planning, reasoning, and self control. Without it, we would be unable to perform day-to-day functions. The temporal cortex processes sensory information and translates it into visual memory, language comprehension, and emotion association. The parietal cortex processes sensory information like spatial awareness and temperature. We use it to gain a spatial sense and navigate. The occipital lobe is dedicated to processing what we see, and it is sometimes called the visual processing center. Each lobe can be seen in the diagram on the right. The brainstem is important because it is what connects the brain to the spinal cord. It contains two main parts. The midbrain is associated with vision, hearing, motor control, alertness, and temperature regulation. The medulla oblongata is mostly responsible for involuntary actions like vomiting or sneezing. The third main part of the brain is the cerebellum. It is another major part of the brain, and it is located near the brainstem. It can be seen in green in the diagram on the right. It plays a major role in motor function and is involved in attention and language. It is also involved in pleasure and fear responses to the outside world. The spinal cord combines with the brain to form the central nervous system. The spinal cord is the pathway for information to be sent through the brain to the body. Without it, we would not be able to walk or perform day-to-day functions.
Oh, hi. Well, wasn't that really interesting? You know what else is interesting? Nervous system diseases. So now, that's what we're gonna look at. Ready? Okay.
Epilepsy is one of the diseases that are associated with the nervous system. It's a chronic neurological disorder which causes recurrent unprovoked seizures, which means they can't control it. May be a result of brain damage or family tendency, which means it runs in the family. Severity can differ widely from person to person, can be treated but not cured, and it's very common.
Another type of nervous system disease is Alzheimer's disease. This is a type of dementia, so a chronic nervous system problem. It causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. Dementia worsens with age and is most common in people over the age of 65. There is treatment available, but there is no cure for dementia. It is very often caused by genetics, and it is very common, especially, as I said, in those over 65.
Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, is a nervous system disease that weakens the muscles. This disease gets progressively worse over time, and there are no current treatments or cures. ALS causes degeneration and death of neurons responsible for controlling a person's voluntary muscles. Mainly occurs in older males from ages 55 to 75 randomly, and this disease is very rare. Fun facts about the nervous system. There are more nerve cells in the human brain than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. A newborn baby loses about half of their nerve cells before they are even born. The nervous system can transmit nerve impulses as fast as 180 miles per hour. If all of the neurons in your body were lined up, it would be about 600 miles long.
Now that you've learned about that, we're going to talk about how the nerve impulse travels through the nervous system and the different systems that interact with the nervous system. The path the nervous impulse travels from stimulus to reaction is that a stimulus is received by sensory nerve cells in the skin, and it travels along a series of sensory neurons through the network of nerves within the peripheral nervous system. The nerves from the peripheral nervous system branch out of the spinal cord throughout the body and through the arms and legs, which can be seen in the image here, in which the pain is felt in the legs. Then the stimulus enters the spinal cord and travels to the brain, interpreted by the brain. The process is then reversed, in which a response from the brain travels along another set of motor neurons to muscles or organs. The set of muscles or organs then respond to the stimulus. Some responses are automatic without traveling to the brain. It's known as reflex action. An example would be like reacting to a hot stove and pulling your hand away. The skeletal system is one of the systems that interacts with the nervous system, specifically the skull and vertebrae. Bones provide calcium that is essential for the proper functioning of the nervous system, and calcium is important in the contraction and expansion of blood vessels. So, nerve endings release calcium ions which bind to activated proteins, which helps the nervous system function in cell signaling. The skull protects the brain from injury. The vertebrae protects the spinal cord from the injury. Sensory receptors in joints between bones send signals about body position to the brain. The brain regulates the position of bones by controlling muscles. For the cardiovascular system, it interacts with the nervous system, specifically its heart and blood vessels. Endothelial cells maintain the blood-brain barrier. Endothelial cells line the inside of every blood vessel in the body, and it's very extensive. The capillaries carry blood to the brain and spinal cord tissue, blocking the passage of certain substances. The baroreceptors send information to the brain about blood pressure, and baroreceptors are basically what responds to changes in blood pressure. Cerebrospinal fluid drains into the venous blood supply, and cerebrospinal fluid is a clear body fluid found in the brain and spinal cord. The brain regulates heart rate and blood pressure. The digestive system interacts with the nervous system, specifically with its stomach, esophagus, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and intestines. The digestive processes provide the building blocks for some neurotransmitters. Like, it provides amino acids. The autonomic nervous system controls digestive processes by controlling blood flow to the digestive tracts. The brain controls drinking and eating behavior. The brain controls muscles for eating and elimination, meaning poo and peeing. The digestive system sends sensory information to the brain.
Oh, hello there! I sure do love the cardiovascular system, but you know what else is interesting? Senses. I sense this is gonna be interesting. Okay, let's do it!
Hi everyone! It's time to talk about the eye. The eye is a sensory organ that reacts to light. It has cells in the retina that are responsible for perceiving it, and its color and depth in the environment. Rods are responsible for vision at a low level. They have low spatial acuity, which means they can't really discern shapes well, and they can't do color. Cones, however, can do color, and they can do shapes very well. There are also ganglion cells, which regulate the size of the pupil according to the light levels, and along with melatonin, which is wakefulness. So the darker it is, the bigger they'll make the eye, and the less melatonin they'll produce. Finally, the optic nerve transmits the neural electrical signals to the brain according to the light perception, and where the optic nerve meets the eye in the retina, you get a blind spot. Next up, we have the sense of touch, or the somatosensory system, which is concentrated in the dermis, between the epidermis and the hypodermis. This provides a sense of touch, heat, pain, and vibrations. Receptors on the surface communicate to axons, neurons, which then communicate to the brain. Typically, the path of the axons is from the receptors on the dermis up the spinal cord, and through that, they access the brain. Next, we're moving on to taste and the gustatory system. The tongue is equipped with many taste buds, which contain taste receptor proteins that can taste particular classes of tastes when they come in contact with your food molecules. Now, there are distinct types of taste receptors that detect different types of tastes. These include sweet, bitter, salty, sour, spicy, and umami. And the electrical signals conducted via the glossopharyngeal and vagus nerves go into the brain and into the gustatory cortex. Next up, we have the smell in the nose, also called olfaction. The most important organ in this is the olfactory epithelium, which lines the nasal cavity and contains millions of olfactory receptors capable of binding with specific molecules. Now, this detects smells and sends the signals via the olfactory bulb to the brain. And then the brain translates those signals into reactions learned from previous exposures to these smells. And the last, but certainly not the least of the sensory organs, is the ear, which controls both hearing and balance. Now, as for hearing, the sound waves travel into the ear canal and they reach the eardrum. The eardrum passes these vibrations through the bones and the ear, where they encounter hair cells in the inner ear. The vibration of these hair cells is transmitted through electrical signals to the brain, which then interprets it as a sound. Alright, so an example of another nervous system in another animal that's very different from ours is the octopus's nervous system. This is a decentralized nervous system where all the neurons are split up into ganglia throughout the body, essentially clusters of neurons. Now, the central brain contains about 10% of the neurons, only 10%, while the optic lobes contain about 30%. 60% of the neurons are located in the tentacles. As such, each tentacle can function independently of the brain and of each other. Another example of a sensory organ in another creature is the lateral line system. This is a system of sense organs found in aquatic vertebrates, such as fish. It detects movement, vibration, and pressure in water, and is often used to hunt prey and for social schooling. It is very similar to the auditory system in humans, because hair cells are used to detect the external conditions. These hair cells detect the water pressure or vibration on the outside or movement, and then communicate with nerves attached to the corresponding neuromast, a thin organ below the surface of the fish, which sends the signal back to the brain. Finally, some snakes, such as vipers, pythons, and boas, have a unique sense. They have small pits in their face, with a heat-sensing membrane, which allows them to track prey and sense predators in the absence of light. There are nerve cells in the snake's facial pit, which contain an infrared receptor that, instead of detecting infrared light as light, detect it as heat. This allows them to sense even in the absence of light.
Alright, so that was our coverage of the nervous system. We hope you enjoyed it, or you could not enjoy it. I don't really care. It's my show. Only I love it. So if you want to learn about other systems, come back next Sunday night at 12 p.m. for more learning and fun times. Bye!